Well, good morning and welcome to Zen Live, or Zen Fits, or as we are doing now is looking at Eckhart Tolle quotes. So we could say the Zen of Eckhart Tolle. I see I just add Zen to everything. So, and hopefully we'll, if you follow this and get my different, that Zen is really, I'm not talking about Orthodox Zen, I'm talking about something else. But anyway, we're going to pull apart Tolle quotes like cotton balls, make them transparent, and see where they take us. I've been doing this on my, I have a page, Meditations on Eckhart Tolle, that I've been writing for years. And basically what I do, it's a discipline, it's a practice. Discipline is not a good word because it sounds like you have to do it. Oh, I got to do it again. No, it's a practice. It's something that you just do for its own sake. So pulling apart a Tolle quote is a practice, and it's best. It's like a wisdom quote. It doesn't have to be Tolle. It could be, the internet's full of them. Any, or poetry, or any wisdom quote is a concentrated a tea bag, for instance. So you have to soak this concentrated tea bag of wisdom in the hot water in order to drink it. Well, this is coffee, but you get the idea. You have to steep the wisdom. You have to play with it. You have to listen to what's between the lines. You have to get the feel of the speaker or the teacher who is speaking through these words to your inner teacher. So there's two teachers here. There's the teaching has a speaker or creator of the teaching. There's the teaching, which is the quote or the art, and then there is the viewer or listener. So to get the tea out of the tea bag, you have to interact with the speaker or the teacher as the teacher. So the quote or the art or whatever the teaching is, see, the teaching is the art or the metaphor. The teaching then begins to inform you, not you inform it. So in order to get to the wisdom or the secret, you have to relax your wanting to know what the truth is. And that brings us to today's quote. So it's very short, and it says, and I just pulled this up in the morning to work with it, whatever the ego seeks and get attached to are substitutes for the being that it cannot feel. Whatever the ego seeks and get attached to are substitutes for the being that it cannot feel. So I came up with when I read that, the idea of flypaper came into my mind. And the world is flypaper. Now that's a metaphor. The world obviously is not flypaper, but it is flypaper. That is a metaphor because it points in two different directions. It points to the world in two different directions. The world is not flypaper. The world is flypaper. So what's the truth? You see, now the problem with truth as logical is that it has to be clear and distinct. That's what Descartes said. That's what is all about science. Science can't work with metaphors. Science works with either or. It is or it isn't. You see, you can't work with both at the same time. But self-knowledge must use metaphor, must go in through this portal. So the world is flypaper. Well, what is the... First of all, there is no flypaper without the fly. You see? In order for paper to become flypaper, you have to have a fly. So the fly gets stuck on the flypaper. That's the whole point of flypaper. So the paper and the fly make... The interaction of the paper and the fly make the flypaper, the sticky paper. So flypaper is sticky and it catches something. Now, so what does it catch? Well, whatever the ego seeks and gets attached, whatever the ego seeks and gets stuck on are substitutes for the being that it cannot feel. So flypaper is a substitute for, and being, it has a capital B. So flypaper is a substitute for being, and you, and that would be the ego, and ego basically is me. Or me would be the sense of me, the sense of self that is separate. So the sense of self that is separate, we could say, is the ego. So if the sense of self is separate, okay, so the ego is separate from what? From, well, being. But then what is being? Now here's where we get into a problem in language. Because being is what is. In other words, if you can experience it, it's being. If in other words, being is what we experience. And what we experience, we name. So whatever we experience, we name it. And if it doesn't have a name, we give it a name. So we give being names and form that we experience. So, all right, so the flypaper of the world is what we name, the forms we name that we experience. I'm holding this card. This card is a name, I gave it. And then what? Well, I could keep on defining it. It's an Eckhart Tolle. It's a quote. It's an Eckhart Tolle card. It's blue. It's orange. It's rectangular. It's rather stiff. Has another side to it. And makes a sound. So in other words, we can spend a lot of time defining this word card. But is the form or the name card being? You could say the card rises out of being, but the card is not the cosmos, the whole all of being. This is something that I selected consciously as an experience that I can share with you and use as a function. In other words, so this is a substitute for the totality. And you see, we can't experience the totality because whatever we experience has to have some form. It has to be something. So you can't experience what isn't something. And yet, so being the totality of all somethings, cannot be experienced. But I say, well, I experience being. Well, being is just another name and form. It's an idea. So we have to be very careful not to think an idea is being. Because an idea is just a name and a form, although it would be a mental name and form. So this is where we really get into a lot of trouble, because we think our ideas are being. We think our ideas or thoughts of the world are reality. So we say God, well, I know God. Well, what you know is the idea of God. So God must be greater than or beyond all names and forms. Otherwise, you just reduce him into a name in your mind or your language or your religion. You see? So our need to know being from our sense of separate self creates substitutes for the all in names and forms. And then I identify with, you see, then boom, 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 boom. Then the ego, me, identifies with the ideas, the names, and the forms that it substitutes for the all and gets attached to it. Flypaper. So that's the idea that Tolle is trying to pull apart here, is that we want to feel, I want to feel being. Now, why do I want to feel being? If I know being, I don't know being, I just know the substitutes for being. So the mind knows being through language, ideas, definitions, descriptions, religion and philosophy. You see, all of these things are the mind's way of knowing being, but it really just knows itself, because the mind creates the language. But feeling now, feeling is different, see, because I can feel this, you see. I mean, I can know this intellectually. My vision, well, my senses know the colors, and but feeling, you see, makes it real. So feeling, and why do I want to feel being? Well, if I, you see, am separate, remember, from being, then I am not part of life. I am outside of being. I feel I am outside of the world. I feel that I'm outside of my experience. I feel that I'm outside of what's real. And I want to be part of. I want to be whole. I want to be complete. I want to know, and then I will frame that in any kind of way I can. I want to know God. I want to know love. I want to be in relationship. I want to be at home. But I want to feel it. See, I want to experience it. Aha. So I want to experience being. And here's the problem. I, that is separate from being, cannot both be being and separate from being at the same time. Here's the trap. Here's the double bind. You see, I want to experience being, but in order to experience being, or the all, you see, under the idea if I could experience the all, I would be the all, and that would end my quest to be complete. That would end my quest for God. That would end my quest for wholeness and knowing who I am, you see. So this quest, we feel, would end if I could experience the all. Then there would be nothing left to experience. That would be it. I would be finished, you see. I would be at peace. So this whole problem is that I want to be there to experience it. In other words, it's kind of like the kids in the back seat of the car. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Well, when we get there, I want to experience being there. I mean, that's why bother? If I can't experience getting ice cream, why chase it? If I can't experience getting the donut, why go out and buy one? So here's where you can't eat the cake and keep it at the same time. This is the trap of the flypaper. So we create a substitute for being so we can experience it. And that way I can have an experience of being the all through a substitute, and then I can believe or hypnotize myself into believing that if I can experience the all through a substitute, that will end the quest for being. You see how that's the problem there? So nothing is ever finished. This is always an incomplete experience. And as soon as we get attached to what we think is to our substitute for the all, we discover that we're stuck, like the fly on flypaper. But we blame the stuckness not on our own self-delusion, but on somebody else, something else. Somebody's to blame for my being stuck, you see. And it all goes down to the fact that I want to experience being, or I want to experience the totality, the source of being, through substitutes. Now in Christianity, these are called false idols. In Buddhism, it's called ignorance. So it's the ignorance or the misperception that the substitute or the idea for the totality, or truth, you could say, our idea of truth is a substitute for the whole, and then we get stuck to it because we identify with it. You see, when we're stuck, that means we identify. The fly identifies with the flypaper and can't get off because he can't let go. He can't be, once you identify with something, you can't let go of it out of fear that you will die. You can't separate from what you identify as the whole, because then you will be lost again. But the more you struggle to grab and attach to the whole, the more stuck you get. So the effort to complete the attachment to the substitute creates our stuckness to the substitute. And the fly is doomed, you see. So you could look at the world through this metaphor of the world as flypaper of form that the mind names and creates and chases, and all the people are stuck to it. So the world of mind is just one big ball of flypaper. And a good example of that is the collective media. Now we're watching TV, so there's another terrorist. There's another terrorist attack. That's a name that we give it, a terrorist attack. Oh my God, in London, okay, and everybody now. This is a global mind now, and everybody's stuck to it. Turn on the TV, we're stuck on it. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. As if talking about it will get us unstuck from it. But we're stuck right there, you see. Now, what sticks us to this? Well, the name we've given it. The name that we've given the event is what we're stuck on, not the fact that 10 people died. I mean, 10 people die all the time. People die all the time. Okay? But, so it's not on death that we're stuck on. It's the name we're stuck on. You see, so you could look, and so the world is becoming very, very sticky. And it's becoming bigger, you see. The world used to be very small here in Blackstone. Blackstone used to be the center of the world, and anything that was important happened in Blackstone. It was a self-contained little world. And then it gets bigger, you see, and then it becomes Virginia. So then the Civil War happened, you know, and so that was where states were the world. And so each state was a world unto itself, and people got stuck on their state. So they would have to go war with anybody that tried to pry them off of their state, you see. So we keep getting stuck on stuff. We watched the movie Shack the other night, and that was all about somebody being stuck on a traumatic event. This little girl was kidnapped and killed, and he got stuck on it. He couldn't let go. So we get stuck on post-traumatic syndrome as being stuck. So we get stuck on positive and negative. We get stuck on them because we identify with it. And then we can't let go because we have because the struggle to let go creates more stuckness. So obviously we can't get out of the fix, you see. So I think that what the Tolle quotes for me point to, what I see through them, is a teaching that points out why and how we get stuck, and they also point to how you can get released from being stuck. And the release to being stuck on the flypaper is seeing that each of us is the cause of our stuckness. So when I see, now the seeing, you see, is the seeing that you're stuck on flypaper is being. Because seeing is all. When you see, now by see I mean like knowing. I know, or I'm aware, or seeing. These are all kind of like interchangeable for the whole. In psychology, it's called the Gestalt. It's like in a room, you're running around with the flashlight, and suddenly, which is consciousness, and which gets stuck on everything it sees. Oh, peanuts, there. Peanuts, I want that. So right there, I want to get identified and stuck on peanuts. Because I believe if I eat the peanuts, I'll be, okay, you see. But then suddenly somebody flips on the light, and now I have a gestalt, or I see the whole room. And all it takes is just a flash. A flash bulb goes off. Lightning strikes. You can see the whole room. You can see the totality. And that's the all. So being and seeing or knowing are one. But when we identify with a separate sense of self, we divide seeing from being, and then we chase it in substitute forms. But when suddenly I see that I am that I am that, or the all. The seeing is the all. So the seeing is being. Being and knowing are one. And in Sanskrit, in yoga, that's called Satchidananda. Knowing and being are one. In Zen, it's called prajna, or the mind that is aroused, that rests on no thing. So the awakened mind rests on no flypaper. The awakened mind, which is not an ego, a little me, the awakened mind is basically just seeing. And it sees that there is nothing to be stuck on, because seeing is not separate from what it sees. Seeing is not even consciousness. Consciousness means I, a subject, am conscious of that. But the flash of seeing has no location, has no thing. Seeing and being are one. So we'll leave it at that. So I'll see you later on, and thanks for dropping in.